What's up, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the 249 Miles of College Football podcast. I am Drew Nixon. Happy to have you along for the ride today. A lot to get into. We're going to be talking about KU, K-State, recapping the games that they had this past weekend. Also, looking ahead to the big one between Missouri and Alabama. It might be the game of the week by the time we get to the end of Saturday night. We'll have to see. But that one obviously is a big one for not just Missouri's hopes of winning this game and the SEC conversation, but also their hopes of getting to the college football playoffs. So we'll be getting into that today, as well as some other things nationally that pertain to the three locals. The transfer portal now finally has one window. It's not two windows. It's not a bunch of helter-skelter in terms of, well, I'm going to enter the portal now and I'm going to go now. It is a set window now when the transfer portal will be open for college football. We'll discuss the time frame and all of those things as well in today's podcast. Before we get started, if you haven't already, go and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode going forward. If you're already subscribed, thank you for subscribing. Also, check out our 96.5 The Fan page on Instagram. We're going to be going live right after the Alabama and Missouri game. This upcoming Saturday, we go live after the biggest game of the weekend for the locals. Each and every Saturday, reacting. It's fun to hang out. Come and give your thoughts. Like if you think Missouri is going to the playoff after they win, or even if they lose, if you still think they can bounce back, then come and give your comments as well. We're going to be reacting to that one and looking ahead to, the KU and K-State games that also are happening on Saturday, as they're both after that Alabama-Missouri game. But that'll be the time, probably around 2:30-ish, whenever that game ends between the Tide and the Tigers. We'll be breaking that down for you on Instagram live. All right, so let's get into the podcast with the first half. So I want to start off with the Kansas Jayhawks, and then we'll go K-State, and then we'll go to Missouri to preview that matchup. Kansas gets that win over UCF, and look, sometimes an ugly win, it doesn't matter how the win looks. It could be ugly, it could be great, it could be, you could blow a team out. A win's a win in college football, and I think that is the biggest thing to come from this past weekend for Kansas, where it's like, look, you lost to Cincinnati. It's a tough one. Can you bounce back and be able to win a tough game on the road? The weather's kind of crazy with all the rain that was going on in Florida. They found a way to get the job done. It was a little bit sketchy early on, but credit to the Jayhawks for bouncing back and being able to make some stops defensively. They showed up in a big way, and I think that then being able to bounce back in that game the way that they did, carrying that energy defensively that they did into this weekend, I think it can bode well for them as they play Texas Tech, of course, team that is very highly ranked and right now probably the favorite to win the Big 12. So they needed to bounce back, one with a win. But I think the way that they did it, where we know Jim Zebrowski can cause problems for opposing defenses, and it's a matter of execution. They got to be able to run the ball a little bit better against Texas Tech otherwise. And I think it's weird. It comes down to the run game a lot, I think, with Kansas, where like Jalen Daniels can go off and it can be really good in terms of throwing the football, airing it out. But you got to be able to have that balance. It makes it a little bit easier. And with LeShawn Williams and Jalen Daniels in that combination, it feels like that's got to hit a little bit more for them to beat Texas Tech. Not that they need to be perfect, but it feels like it's going to have to take the best effort of the season for them to take down Texas Tech. Similar to how it was going to take the best effort to take down Missouri, they just couldn't get enough stops. If the defense that showed up against Tech, or against UCF rather, shows up against Texas Tech where you're making plays, you're getting off the field. Bengali Kamara is such a stud. If he also is, stepping up to the plate, it feels like Kansas has a shot at this game against Texas Tech. But I think that was one of the things that stood out. Bengali Kamara is the MVP of the defense. He matters so much to them. And offensively, being able to collectively come back from a bit of a slow start and win that game on the road where, the weather is kind of crazy. It was really impressive, I think, for them to do it. And again, it doesn't matter how you win in college football now with the expanded college football playoff. I think you needed more style points when you had the 4 than when you have the 12 now, because if you're Kansas, all you're asking for is a shot at the Big 12 title game. Because if you get into the Big 12 title game, then you have a shot at the college football playoff. And I think that's maybe just the state of the Big 12 too. Like, I think some of it is the ACC ended up getting 2 teams last year. Maybe the Big 12 ends up getting 2 teams. But I think you have to be able to. There's not we didn't make the conference title game, but we still get to get into the college football playoff situation. That's not a thing with the Big 12. Like, you have to get into the conference title game to give yourselves a shot at the college football playoffs. So, Kansas did what they needed to do to stay alive in that hunt. As far as where they're currently sitting in the Big 12 standings, at the moment, Kansas is in the upper half. Take that for what you will. They're 2-1. They're also tied with Iowa State and Baylor, who are also 2-1. Four teams at 2-0 in Cincy, Arizona State, Texas Tech, and BYU. Again, there's a whole lot of season to go, but let's say Kansas pulls off a win over Texas Tech, then all of a sudden they not just jump in the Big 12 standings, but I think nationally recognized they'll be a top 25 team. And all of a sudden, more people are paying attention to the Kansas Jayhawks, and they can just continue to build on from there. So the way the schedule works out for KU, I mean, after this week, they get K-State, then Oklahoma State, then Arizona, then it's Iowa State after that. I mean, they might be able to rattle off a few more wins after this, where I don't think if they lose this one, it's going to be really difficult for them to make it to the Big 12 title game. But them having three winnable games after that, let's say they lose the game, they get to 4-3, then they win the next three, they're 7-3, you win the last two, especially over an Iowa State team who is currently ahead of you in the standings, and then some stuff shakes out around you, you might be able to find yourself there. But that wasn't the expectation to make the Big 12 title game. It was a potential, as we talked about before the season, was, hey, this team is talented enough, and we've seen that over the course of the season with how the offense is played, that they're a capable team of making a run in the Big 12 and maybe getting to the Big 12 championship game. Probably wasn't going to happen. Probably isn't going to happen now. But them getting to 7 or 8 wins, I think, is a good season. That was around the expectation, and KU's on pace for that. So I would say things are off to a fine start for Kansas. Of course, you want to have that Cincinnati loss back, but being able to be where they're at currently, they're on pace to do what we all kind of were expecting and hoping for them to do this season. Now, K-State, on the other hand, not really addressing those expectations. They drop another really difficult one, and man, it's really difficult sometimes to watch K-State because you're like, what has kind of happened to this team? There was a lot going on. A lot of people were wanting to blame Matt Wells and Chris Kleiman for some coaching things that happened in the game and management. Chris Kleiman at the end of the game, or after the end of the game, said when they had the goal line situation, it was 2nd and goal, I believe, and they decided to throw the ball twice. Both incompletions, Baylor didn't have to use the timeout. Said he would have probably ran the ball. I will say this. The one play design that they had a touchdown. Garrett Oakley was wide open on a crosser. Nobody was near him. Avery didn't look his way, didn't see him, threw the ball out of bounds out of the back of the end zone. And he was getting blitzed as well. He didn't have really much time to turn to his left. He just rolled out to his right. But, man, he had Garrett Oakley. He was wide open. So that's a touchdown. And then Baylor's got to go score a touchdown instead of get a field goal to win. Who knows how that all would have gone out. But in the end, Avery Johnson throws that pick six, and he takes the blame for it. But I think that part of this is, look, I don't think it's hard to really take one specific thing, especially when you had the lead after that mistake, to just blame the mistake. Like, Avery Johnson's pick six was not good, obviously, but they drove right down the field and had that opportunity to score the touchdown where Garrett Oakley was wide open. And instead, they kicked the field goal. They could go up by 2. So they had the lead. Like, the offense answered the bell after the mistake from Avery Johnson, and the defense couldn't get off the field when it mattered most, and Baylor kicks the field goal and they win it. It was a great kick to win, obviously. And you look at Baylor as a team, they went up against maybe the best quarterback in the Big 12. This game to me is more, I think it's on the defense, but you can also blame coaching for this. I understand the coaching complaints this time around, where Matt Wells, it feels like at times doesn't, you're not quite getting the best version of this K-State team. And it's hard for me, though, to think, like, look, you scored 34 points. Your quarterback went toe-to-toe with the best quarterback maybe in the Big 12. Avery Johnson was phenomenal. He was outstanding. Joe Jackson played well. Dylan Edwards got some run, went out for a little bit, and then came back in. But Jace Brown was good. Jerron Tibbs was good. Garrett Oakley got a lot of looks. Joe Jackson had maybe the best game that he's had all season. Like, it's hard to blame the offensive coordinator in that position. If that makes any sense, you know what I'm saying? Like, production wise, the offense did its job. The defense didn't get a stop. The defense couldn't get off the field when they needed to most. And that was a big problem. A really big problem. The only stop that Baylor, the third quarter was dominated by K-State. This is where I think coaching plays into this. You're up 31-17. And you get the ball back after Baylor goes turnover on downs. You're up 31-17 with the ball. You got to be able to close that out. You got to be able to close that out. That's so difficult to be up 14 going into mid-fourth quarter and lose the game. That's where you can blame. That's why, again, I understand the time management blame. I understand the coaching blame. Because from a player perspective, the players gave them everything. The players executed, but in the end, they still lost the game. It felt like when you had the chance to punch them in the mouth and end it, you didn't do that. You let them back in. You couldn't get anything done. You throw the pick six, they get tied. You take the lead again, but it just felt like it was you had the game and you kind of blew it. And I totally understand where fans come from in that perspective. It's a really brutal loss for them. They, in comparison, I think it best kind of sums up what the Kansas Jayhawks team was from last season, where they're in a ton of close games, pretty much all close games, and a majority of them, they're making the mistakes, they're not making the plays, and they lose. Or they don't have the luck, and they lose to Army. Like, a lot has gone against them in these games, but they've also kind of done it to themselves, if that makes sense, where you're not getting a stop, you're not executing, you do have maybe a pick six, the coaching mistake is there, time management is there, then you get the bad luck as well. Like, it's everything is going against Kansas State this season in a way is kind of what it feels like, where last year everything kind of felt like it was going against Kansas, and how games shook out and the way that the cards fell was really never in Kansas's favor. It feels that way this year a little bit with the Kansas State Wildcats. So it's a bummer. It stinks. Obviously, just part of the game, being able to bounce back. Like, them getting to a bowl game at this rate would be kind of impressive, dare I say. Like, if they get to 6-6, then I think, in a way they kind of figured it out. It's just a really tough loss to have in this game where it's against an opponent who was above you in the standings. Not that that matters, but it could give you some more of a momentum boost. Like, it's against a good, high-quality opponent, a great quarterback. You still got the win. Like, it would have been a lot for morale's sake. They host TCU this weekend, who are 4-1. I think being in Manhattan, that helps. That can only help. That's on Big Fox, by the way, at 2:30. They're on the bottom half of the Big 12, as you can imagine, 1-2 in the conference, 2-4 overall. It is kind of crazy. They have a positive point differential for both conference play and overall. That goes to show you that every game is close again. They're 1-2. They've only won one game out of 3 in conference play, and they're outscoring their opponent on average for the season, 89-79. They've also, and this is, I think, part of the defense's issue, they've given up like the 5th most points in the conference play this year so far. That's where I say, like, it's an identity thing. It doesn't feel like a Kansas State team that we're used to. Like, it's a lack of efficiency. It's an error-filled group. It's a not taking advantage of situations group. It just doesn't feel like a Kansas State team that we are used to seeing on a regular basis. On the other hand, the Missouri Tigers are the one team that are by far the best out of the locals so far this season. They're ranked 14th in the country. They host number 8, Alabama. The biggest opportunity for them since they probably made it to those SEC title games. Like, this is a game that feels massive. And not that they are out of the college football playoff. If they lose this one, they can still win out, and I think that they're in. Again, I think if you get to 10-2 as an SEC team, you're going to be in the college football playoff. But this feels like one where it's on campus. It is a statement type of opportunity for you to win a game over the Alabama Crimson Tide. It just feels like a massive game where if they win it, it's like a stamp where it's like, okay, we are here and you're going to have to respect us. Like right now, they're getting respect, but they're not getting it from a national standpoint of, okay, this team's legit and this team's for real. If they beat Alabama, and I understand that Alabama lost to Florida State and all this other stuff, I think a lot of people, including myself, see Alabama as a potential college football playoff team. I had them making the playoff this year. If they beat this team, I understand that it's in Columbia, but if they win this game, then it feels like a massive, massive win for the culture at Missouri. It feels like a massive win for the national narrative at Missouri. It feels like a massive win for the college football playoff hopes. They technically could still not make it, I guess, but it feels massive in multiple different categories. The biggest game that they've had on campus in a very long time, I would say. If they take advantage of it, they're going to be in the top 10. They will be probably favored in terms of betting to make the playoff. They'll be minus money, I bet, to make the playoff. Beau Pribula and Ahmad Hardy. We'll have to see how Ahmad Hardy does. I think he's going to be. Alabama's got to know, okay, Ahmad Hardy is getting enough of a name recognition now where you got to know who he is. And they're going to try to stop him because they know that they lead the SEC in rushing yards per game. They lead the SEC in total yards per game. They're second in points per game. Like they're very efficient and very good in multiple different categories. Run game being one of them. And this is where Beau Pribula, I think, is if they win this game, Beau Pribula is going to have a Johnny Manziel-ish type of game where they're going to stop Ahmad Hardy or try to, but Beau Pribula is going to have to use his legs. He's going to have to make great throws. He'll have to make great decisions to win this game. That's what it feels like. He'll need a Johnny Manziel-esque type of performance for the Missouri Tigers to win this game. The one good thing about Missouri is that as great as they've been on offense this year, they're just as good on defense. And you're facing a quarterback in Ty Simpson that's the best quarterback they've faced all season, who's second in the Heisman race, who is maybe the best quarterback in the SEC this year. And he knows the system very well. He's waited his time at Alabama. He's got a good relationship with all the players. It's not a transfer portal quarterback who Alabama brought in. This is a guy that has been there, waited, and now it's his time. He's been very, very good. And one of the things that big scouts have said is he's playing like an NFL type of quarterback at college right now. So it's going to be a big test for the Missouri Tigers, but they've got the personnel, I think, to win this game. I think the environment is going to be rocking. I like Beau Pribula more than anybody else. I think that's had a Missouri uniform on at quarterback since I've been doing this podcast. It feels like they've got a great opportunity ahead of them that provides them a path to the college football playoff, and it's a big win to jump into that conversation and continue that momentum as they go into the meat of their schedule with Auburn and Vandy and A&M and Oklahoma. So this would be a great way to kick things off in this game against Alabama. I think Ahmad Hardy is, I don't know if he's going to, like, it's easy to say, well, he's not going to do it because it's Alabama, but he's on pace right now to have an Ashton Jeanty type season. And dare I say, I mean, if he goes for a 100 again, I mean, we're talking like Heisman odds are skyrocketing. If he goes for a hundo against Bama, he's going to be up there in the top 10, if not maybe even top 5 of Heisman odds. All of a sudden, he goes from 60 to 1 to 30 to 1 to 12 to 1 or something like that as far as the odds are concerned. But I think Beau Pribula, the onus is on him. He's going to have a Johnny Manziel type of game. And the defense, being able to force a turnover and win the turnover battle, I think is something that really is going to pave their way. Like if they win in the turnover battle, I'm not going to say Mizzou is locked in to win the game, but there is no reason not to win the game if they win the turnover battle. There's no reason not to win this football game if they win the turnover battle on Saturday. Again, that game is at 11 a.m. on ABC. We'll be reacting to it on our Instagram channel. Go to the Fan 965 on Instagram. You can find us. I'll be going live right there. If you follow the station on Twitter as well, I'll pop out a link as well so you can see it there. Come hang out and let's have a good time. Okay, let's get to the second half and more of a national perspective on things. I am going to discuss the main thing that I wanted to discuss really is the transfer portal and how things are kind of changing. News came out yesterday, as I'm recording this, that the transfer portal um, is going to have a set day, a set time frame now. And January 2nd through the 16th is the official single January portal. Um, it's been approved by the D1 Administrative Committee. Again, January 2nd through the 16th. I like this. They needed to go to one little time frame instead of separating them instead of doing them separately. But I do think that the time frame, again, if you look at January 2nd to the 16th, that's right in the middle of the college football playoff time. So if you look at Beau Pribula last year, Missouri's quarterback, of course, transfers from Penn State, the window closed at a time where, he wanted to be a part of the Penn State team, but needed to go to the portal as well. He enters the portal, and he wasn't able to participate or travel with the team. I mean, who knows if he'd have participated because Drew Aller played. He was a starter, but he had to sacrifice doing that to go to the portal and eventually go to Missouri, where now you're able to hang, I guess, but the national title was on January 20th last year. If Penn State would have made the national title, Drew Aller would have still had to enter the portal and might have not been a part of that national championship winning squad. If you see, I don't know if you're picking up what I'm putting down, but a lot of the players who are still involved in college football playoff teams are not going to be able to be with them if they go on to play in the national title. I think that's it's not annoying, but I understand frustration from players if that's something that exists, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I don't know why they couldn't do January 23rd to February 4th. It's the same time frame. It's one single window. It's after the season is done. That'd be the only bone to pick I have with it. But look, they needed to just go to one portal window. If you want to go, this is the time to go, and this is your only time to go. You got to make that decision now. You can't wait until the spring and all this other stuff. This is the time to go. It is the 2nd through the 16th of January. That is the time to go. I will say this. This is part of the release. Student athletes who are members of teams that participate in postseason contests or after January 12th may initiate notification during a consecutive 5-day period beginning the day after their team's final postseason contest. So maybe I didn't read too far enough. It sounds like they're addressing it, where if you're a part of the postseason stuff and you're like, you know what, this is in the window, I'm going to give you have 5 days right after. I think that's fine, actually. So never mind what I said. It sounds like they actually did what I wanted. Great. So the window of, hey, you played in a bowl game, it doesn't work, which is a majority of the teams. A lot of them don't play in January. That's just playoff stuff. It's all taken care of right then and there. And that window is in. If you're in the postseason, if you're in the playoff, you have 5 days after your last game is done to go. So I love this, actually. I like what they're – it needed to go down to one window, which it did. And now it looks like they're actually addressing what happened with Beau Pribula last year where he had to enter the portal. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, so there we go. That was the main thing I wanted to talk about, just as it pertains to Missouri. Like, because in the previous rule, let's say Missouri makes the playoff, and let's say they win a game. They're not going to get the bye, I don't think, unless they win the SEC. And even if they win the SEC, they're straight seeding it. If Missouri made the playoff and won a game, you might have to deal with a situation where players like, yeah, man, I'm going to enter the portal, like I don't want to, and all this other stuff. That gets avoided, so that's really good. Big playoff implications this weekend, and then we'll get to the Saturday six picks here in just a moment. The college football slate this weekend is outstanding. It's so good, so good. It might even be better than the NFL slate. I'm a college football guy. Again, it's a college football podcast, so I have a lenience to go that way most of the time anyways. But Ohio State plays Illinois this weekend. If Illinois has any legitimate shot of making the college football playoff, they got to beat Ohio State this weekend. Alabama plays Missouri. If Alabama loses, they got 2 losses, and they really can't afford any other slip up the rest of the year. If Missouri loses, they still got a shot, but it teeters on, balancing the remainder of their schedule. That game has massive playoff implications. Of course, Ohio State also, if they lose, then they got to answer the bell as well. IU at Oregon in Eugene, massive playoff implications. Both teams are currently 5-0. If one of them loses, not that they still can't make it, of course. I think Indiana's the team that if they somehow win, then all of a sudden they might be locked in with the remainder of their schedule and how it goes. But there's still the implications of seeding and all those other things of comparison of if Indiana loses and then they drop another one, are they in at 10-2? Like there's a lot of comparison, he said, she said type of stuff where I don't know whose opinion to go with here. Oklahoma, Texas, Red River rivalry is back. Oklahoma's undefeated. John Mateer might play. He's questionable. If he does play, they can knock Texas out of the playoff hopes right away. Texas is 3-2. What have I said? You're automatically in if you're 10-2. 9-3, debatable. Texas, if they lose this game, all of a sudden they're 3-3 with the remainder of their schedule. Who knows how this thing goes the rest of the way? Oklahoma with the loss, they can still make it, but all of a sudden, if Oklahoma loses, and let's say Missouri, I know Mizzou fans aren't going to want to hear this, but we're just playing a hypothetical out. If Oklahoma and Missouri both lose this weekend, that game towards the end of the season between OU and MU is so much bigger. It might already be big, but I think it is even more massive if both teams lose this weekend, just looking ahead in the schedule. So big. Notre Dame, massive playoff implications. They play NC State. If they lose, they're probably out, given the schedule. Like 9-3 Notre Dame, I don't know if I don't think they're making it. They got to win out if they want to make the college football playoff. So that game is massive for implications. Florida, A&M, massive implications. Florida coming off a big win against Texas. Could they knock off Texas A&M in College Station? Massive implications. Georgia, Auburn, also highly implicative game. Michigan, USC. USC's 4-1, unranked. Michigan's 4-1. This game's in LA. If USC wins, all of a sudden they're looking good to make the college football playoff with the remainder of their schedule and how things pan out. So, I could go like all the way down the line. We're in that part of the season where every single game matters so much, and not just matters, but for the regular part of the season stuff, but your playoff implications, your standings. We're getting down to every single game being just a little bit more meaningful. That's the beauty of this college football season, because we're about 4 weeks away from the first college football playoff rankings, and we already know how that stuff goes with the committee and debating and all that other stuff. You got to try to win these games, and it doesn't matter how you win. It's just a matter of winning, I think. And if you're Missouri, just win, baby. It doesn't matter if this game's ugly or not. You're playing against Alabama. You win this game, you take care of business, all of a sudden you are looking very good to make the college football playoffs. So that being said, let's get into our Saturday 6 picks. There are 6 games on the schedule that I think are the best in all of college football. If you're listening to this on Friday or even on Saturday, you might miss this game. If you're listening to it before then, great. South Florida against North Texas. The Mean Green are undefeated, 5-0, hosting number 24 ranked South Florida, who are 4-1 on the schedule so far this year. North Texas throws the ball around. They throw the ball all over the yard. They're very good. Well coached. USF also well coached. Dynamic quarterback in Byron Brown. I think USF, this is really tough. North Texas is the favorite. The over-under 66.5. That just goes to show you how good these offenses are. I'm going to say USF wins the game, and the reason I say that is because North Texas hadn't played anybody. The best team they play is Army. Now, that's not to throw shade at Army, but the best team that they've played is Army this season. South Florida, of course, has played the Florida Gators. They played Miami. Like they've run through a little bit of a gauntlet here. I'm going to take USF to win the game. I think it's a good one. I think it's close. This is part of the race that if you're a college football fan in general, this is a game you should be watching because the American Conference is maybe the best Group of 5 conference. I think it is actually by far. the best group of 5 conference in all of college football this year. It's way better than the Mountain West, better than the Sun Belt, better than CUSA, better than the MAC, even though we love some action. This is the conference that you need to be watching for college football playoff implications. USF, Memphis, Tulane, North Texas, Navy, a lot of teams to pay attention to in the American Conference as to who makes the college football playoff. Give me USF in this one. All right, Ohio State, Illinois. Ohio State's going to win the game. It's a 14.5-point spread. I feel like Ohio State's going to cover that, but I think Illinois doesn't want to get embarrassed like they did against Indiana. They're going to try to bounce back again after they had a good win over USC a couple weeks ago, beat Purdue handily. I think Illinois covers the 14.5 at least right now, as what it is on the line that I'm looking at. But Ohio State, I think, wins the game. I think they're just too good, especially on defense. They got the best player in college football in Caleb Downs. Bama and Missouri. Alabama is a 3.5-point favorite on the road. Missouri not only covers, I think the Missouri Tigers win this football game. I told you it just moments ago. It feels like this team is different. Beau Pribula it feels like he's that guy that has that extra juice where he's going to make that play. He's going to make that throw. Defensively is going to be the biggest test, I think. Can they pull off a string of stops and help the offense out a little bit if you're Missouri? Like if it's a slower start, can the defense tread water until the offense can get going? Or can the defense give the offense a break if the offense is having to score? Can the defense come up with a couple big stops late to win this one? I think they do. I take the Missouri Tigers in this one to beat Alabama. All right, 3 games down, 3 to go in the Saturday 6 picks. Let's get right to IU, Oregon. Game days there, number 7, IU versus number 3, Oregon. Oregon's a 7.5-point favorite. I like Indiana a lot, but we know what happened the last time they played Ohio State and played in a big game. They ended up losing. They ended up losing to Notre Dame in the college football playoff. I think Oregon's just too good, and Oregon wins this football game. I do think Indiana, though, it hangs tighter than what they did against Ohio State a couple of years. So it's not a brutal loss, but it is a loss nonetheless. Give me Oregon in this one, even though I think it's going to be a closer one. Also, being in the Autzen Zoo in Eugene, I think that also is something that makes you have to lean Oregon's way. Oklahoma and Texas in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. Beautiful stadium. I recently was on a flight and I flew over the Cotton Bowl. Gorgeous stadium. Awesome. Anyways, to get aside from that, it's the Red River Rivalry. One of the best games on the calendar every single season. Oklahoma, Texas. If John Mateer plays, Oklahoma wins. If John Mateer doesn't play, Oklahoma wins. I think Oklahoma is just better than Texas is. And Arch is, I think, still continuing to figure it out. This is a statement win if he can get it. There's moments where Arch looks really good, and then there's moments where he doesn't. I don't think you can have any moments where he doesn't look good against this Oklahoma team and this defense that's obviously coached up by one of the best defensive minds in college football in Brent Venables. It feels like Texas almost has to be perfect in this game in order to win it. The over-under is only 43.5. Texas's defense, I might hit the over on that, actually, if I was anybody, because of how Texas's defense has looked recently. I think they'll be able to score a little bit, but Oklahoma in the end is just too much, and I think the Sooners win over the Longhorns this weekend. The final one on the schedule that I'm going to predict is KU and Texas Tech for the sake of it being a local. I think Texas Tech wins the game. KU covers, though. 14.5 points is a lot of points, I think, even for a Kansas team that defensively has had some struggles. They're going to have to bow up defensively and play well. I don't know if they play good enough. I think Texas Tech is just too good. But I think Kansas covers this game, and it's a really tight one. Obviously, it would be a brutal loss. It would be tough for Kansas to lose this one because your Big 12 chances and playoff chances are done. But in the same breath, I think they absolutely have a shot to win it because of Jalen Daniels and the offense that they have. So I wouldn't be stunned if KU won this game. But it's going to take an effort defensively that they had last week and the best defensive effort they've had all season if the Jayhawks are going to win this one. But I think Texas Tech is just a little bit too good as well. Man, there's so many good games this weekend. Oh, man, Georgia, Auburn, Michigan, USC. I wish I could pick the other ones, but we got to our 6. So I'm not going to do any more than that. Maybe you'll see a bonus pick on the tweet that I send out on Saturday. But that's going to do it for the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, as always, and tuning in. If you haven't subscribed already, go subscribe so you don't miss a single episode going forward. Also want to give one quick shout out to Missouri State. They won their 3rd game in the FBS last season. They're 3-3, 1-1 in CUSA play. So shout out to Ryan Beard and the crew. Deuce Bailey getting his first start, and he wins it. When Jacob Clark was out, Deuce Bailey steps in and they win the game on the road at Middle Tennessee. So shout out to Missouri State for winning that game as well. That's going to do it. We'll catch you next week for another episode of the 249 Miles of College Football Podcast. Till then, peace.